In this video, we're continuing the standard descriptive characteristics series. There are 8 standard descriptive characteristics for each motion, but here we will be focusing on the second characteristic on the list, application. The whole purpose of the standard descriptive characteristics is to be able to quickly locate vital information about a particular motion. For an example of this characteristic, let's get out Robert's Rules of Order newly revised 12th edition, and let's flip to section 15. Which covers the motion limit or extend limits of debate. As with each section that deals with a specific motion in Robert's Rules of Order, the standard descriptive characteristics can be found within the first few paragraphs. In this case, we only need to flip the page to the 5th paragraph to see the standard descriptive characteristics for the motion to limit or extend limits of debate, which states, can be applied to any immediately pending debatable motion, to an entire series of pending debatable motions, or to any consecutive part of such a series, beginning with the immediately pending question. So what does all that mean? Well, let's look at an example. Let's say we want to limit debate on an amendment that is pending. For example, let's say a member obtains the floor and says, I move that a new Microsoft computer shall be purchased for the office. And let's say it receives a second. This is a main motion and the chair places it before the assembly. Then let's say another member obtains the floor and says, I move to amend by striking out Microsoft and inserting Apple. With this motion receiving a second, the chair places it before the assembly. Members then take turns speaking in debate. And let's imagine that a battle of words ensues with each side vigorously supporting their preferred computer company. Now a member decides that this could go on all night if there's no time limit, so she obtains the floor and says, I move that debate on the pending amendment be limited to 10 minutes. This seems like a good idea to her, but is it in order? Can a limit on debate be applied to only the amendment, or would a limit on debate have to be applied to the main motion as well? Let's refer back to the language in the standard descriptive characteristics for the motion to limit or extend limits of debate, which states, can be applied to any immediately pending debatable motion, to an entire series of pending debatable motions, or to any consecutive part of such a series, beginning with the immediately pending question. So we see that the member has options here. Let's look at them one at a time. First, it says that the motion can be applied to any immediately pending debatable motion. We won't go into the details of debatability in this video, but the motion to amend is debatable, and it is the immediately pending motion, since it was the last pending motion to be placed before the assembly and the one that is now being considered. This means that a motion to limit debate can be applied to this motion to amend in this situation. So if the member who is making the motion to limit debate feels that only debate on the amendment should be limited without creating a limit on debate for the main motion, this is probably the option she would choose, and this is the language she chose for her motion. If this motion to limit debate is adopted, it will mean that after the passage of 10 minutes, debate on the amendment will end, and once the amendment is put to a vote and the chair announces the result, debate will continue on the main motion. If we continue reading the standard descriptive characteristic for the motion to limit or extend limits of debate, we see that it says it can be applied to an entire series of pending debatable motions. Both the amendment and the main motion here are debatable, and they are both pending, so the motion to limit debate to 10 minutes could be applied to both of them as a series. If such a motion was made and adopted, then when the 10 minutes have elapsed, debate will end on both the amendment and the main motion. If, for example, 8 minutes were used in debating the amendment, then only 2 minutes would remain for debating the main motion. And if the full 10 minutes were consumed in debating the amendment, then the amendment would be put to a vote, and after the result is announced by the chair would immediately put the main motion to a vote without allowing any further debate. If we read further into the standard descriptive characteristic, we see that there is a third option. It says the motion can be applied to any consecutive part of such a series, beginning with the immediately pending question. To illustrate this option, let's bring in another pending motion to the list. Let's say a motion to commit had been made and seconded and placed before the assembly. This is a motion to refer the matter to a committee, and it, too, is debatable. So now we have 3 debatable motions pending. This means that a motion to limit or extend limits of debate could be applied to the immediately pending motion, which would be the motion to commit in this situation. Or it could be applied to both the motion to commit and the motion to amend. Or it could be applied to the motion to commit, the motion to amend, and the main motion. As long as it starts with the immediately pending motion, it may apply to a consecutive chain of debatable motions. Now, we're not going to get into all the details and nuances of the motion to limit or extend limits of debate. That is a topic for another video. Here we are just examining the importance of application and the benefit of being able to quickly look up the specific rules of application for each motion. So let's take a quick look at another example. We'll say that the main motion and the amendment are pending. And let's say a member obtains the floor and says, "I move that the amendment be postponed indefinitely." This member recalls that a motion to postpone indefinitely can be used to kill a motion for the remainder of the session, and this looks to her like a good time to apply it. So, is the motion in order? Can it be applied to the amendment? Well, if we open up Robert's Rules of Order newly revised 12th edition to the section on postpone indefinitely, in the second paragraph we will find the standard descriptive characteristics for that motion. Application, as always, is the second standard descriptive characteristic listed, and it states, "Can be applied only to the main question and can therefore be made only while a main question is immediately pending." So we see that it clearly cannot be applied to the amendment. Remember that question in parliamentary law refers to a motion, so main question in this circumstance means main motion. So while postpone indefinitely can be applied to the main motion, it can only be made while a main motion is immediately pending. In this case, the amendment is the immediately pending motion, and as long as the amendment remains pending, the motion to postpone indefinitely is not in order. The interesting details of postpone indefinitely will be covered in another video. For now, let's look at another example of what you might find under the standard descriptive characteristic of application. If we turn to the section in Robert's Rules of Order on the motion to adjourn, under the standard descriptive characteristics there, we will find this: is not applied to any motion, and no subsidiary motion can be applied to it. What I'd like to point out here is that the entries under application also tell you what motion can be applied to the motion that you looked up. Here we see that no subsidiary motion can be applied to it. For another example, let's turn to the section on recess, where when we look under the standard descriptive characteristic of application, we see that, like the motion to adjourn, recess is not applied to any motion, and motions to amend can be applied to it. So why can motions to amend be applied to recess? Well, because the motion made by a member might be to recess for 15 minutes, and another member might want to make an amendment to change that to 30 minutes or 60 minutes. This has been a quick look at the useful information that can be found under the heading of application in the standard descriptive characteristics for each motion in Robert's Rules of Order. So don't be afraid to open the book to the section on the motion that you want to learn more about. You'll find the standard descriptive characteristics within the first few paragraphs, and you'll find a wealth of information there. That covers application.